Nicole, maybe you could tell us a bit about that whole investment approach around sustainability, mobility, and smart cities. And then after that, we get into the meat of this episode, which is, of course, understanding how to best work together with corporates.
Thanks for having me here. I love listening to you guys. You have lots of great people and lots of great topics. So at Woven Capital, we're the growth stage venture fund for Toyota. So we're backed by Toyota. And we make growth stage investments in companies that can collaborate with Toyota. So across three key areas, the first being mobility, which is what you'd expect from, a company like Toyota. The second being industrial. So, how can we improve our manufacturing processes, reduce cost, improve efficiency, help with sustainability. And then lastly, sustainability and helping us meet our, 2030, 2040, 2050 goals. And really those three pillars are intertwined. So companies can often fit in more than just one.
Is Woven Capital a balance sheet fund, or is it a single LP, or what is the legal structure around it?
Yes, we're a single LP fund, so we are set up that way by design. We have a sister fund called Toyota Ventures that does early stage investing. They're mainly based in the Bay Area, and they have a similar structure. So all of us are set up because we have both financial and strategic alignment goals, and it was really important to have that separation.
Tell me a bit more about that sister fund and why the decision was made to make two individual.
So Toyota Ventures has been around since 2016, and they have two streams. So they have their Frontier Fund, which invests in a lot of very disruptive tech that's more kind of general, and that would be under mobility and industrial and other categories. And then they have their Climate Fund as well. And so they have been focused on early stage. So really as a feeder system, if you go to their website, it talks about, we are explorers. So they're really looking for these technologies that can, drive the long-term vision of where Toyota needs to go, what we need to be thinking about, what we need to learn. And then as some of those companies were aging and growing, an early stage fund, it's a very different strategy to then bolt on, a later stage fund just on top of that. So the decision was made to create a separate fund. And Woven Capital is our name. It's a very interesting name because if you look at the history of Toyota, the original founder, his father was an inventor, and he invented the very first automated weaving machine in Japan. And so if we think about where we are now, we're at this, really important, I would say, time in the automobile industry where we're all transitioning to these mobility companies. And we really need to get back to our roots to think about how to weave the past and the future together. And, it really, getting back to our roots around this inventor culture. And so that's one of the rationales behind that is the rationale behind the Woven Capital name.
Whenever we do these podcasts, we try and really dig a bit into what is that relationship between the fund and the mothership, and why is it actually valuable? How does that affect if you take money from you guys, if you collaborate with you around the cap table? So maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Yes. So both us and Toyota Ventures report up through the CFO function. And that's by design because it really needs to be about making money. If we're not a good steward of capital for Toyota's money and being able to provide that financial return, then the strategic return will be more challenging. So we're really this balance between both the strategic and the financial return elements. At Woven Capital, the strategic element is much stronger than it is for an early stage fund. With Toyota Ventures, because it's so much harder to, have a strategic collaboration with a seed stage company. They're just not ready to work at the scale that Toyota needs, but they're really interested in learning from Toyota and understanding what we're doing and kind of sharing that back and forth. At Woven Capital, we really have what we call these like business unit champions. So we have a portfolio success team. So there's the investment team that looks at making the typical investments, doing the due diligence, being on the board and managing the investment like a traditional VC would. But then we have the portfolio success team that can really be this sort of shepherd within the company. And so they are often co-located with some of the business units. They're meeting the business units. They're understanding what Toyota's priorities are, and they're helping our companies project manage kind of in a way to be able to then navigate Toyota. So what happens is we make an investment in a company, and we found one early collaboration, and it might be with, TME, Toyota Motor Europe, and it's to, do something with that group locally. But it could actually deploy across Toyota globally. But Toyota Motor Europe has a goal of, serving their European customers. And sure, they can make introductions to maybe their counterparts in the US or Japan. But we actually take that as an OKR. And that's something that we do is we then are able to then take that company and help them navigate. And we're able to get really great feedback. So it might not fit the US market for various reasons because the technology just doesn't apply there or the market's different. So we can give that company that feedback very early and say it's not actually going to work for Toyota. And so then it's about optimizing those resources and getting that feedback loop, in place really quickly.
So you're part of the investment team, right? So
Yes.
what is your connect to your core colleagues then? Is that part of your job, or
Yes.
is that only to your value creation team?
No, so our teams work really closely together. Most of us actually are in Japan. So if you look at the team, we're actually not a huge team. So we all know each other and we all sit together and we're able to really have those dialogues. We have, like every venture fund, our pipeline meeting every week, a couple of hours long. And our value creation colleagues join that meeting. So it's not just the investment team talking about, hey, this is like how we're moving in due diligence, although that's the primary point of the conversation. We also touch on where the strategic alignment could be and how strong we think that is.
And how do you leverage the value creation team under due diligence?
So it's great. So there's two types of deals where, through our network, if you look at the profile of the investment team, none of us worked for Toyota before. All of us come from mainly a financial background. We have one engineer on the team, so he always gets the really good detailed questions in. If you look at our team, we're really focused on those, kind of like typical investment elements. And then what we do is we find deals and we would really love to do this deal because we think it's a great fit, both from a financial and a strategic perspective. But we don't have maybe the direct relationship with some of those business units. So our value creation colleagues are able to go in and test the waters and see if this is something of interest, set up a demo, see if they want to do that. They also do it the other way around, where they're already talking to those teams and they come to us with a problem. They're saying this team is looking for a solution that does X or Y. And then we're able to then go hunting for solutions and companies.
You recently made an article for Forbes on value creation. Could you give us a little bit more detail on that one? Because, I read through it. I'm 100% in agreement with what you wrote. So let's bring this to the listener.
Sure. So there were three main points on that. And it's really about kind of like the changing mandate of CVC. When you think about, CVC in general, it used to be just these big corporations putting small checks out everywhere, really just using it as a business development tool, trying to hedge against maybe internal projects or trying to figure out who is going to be the winner. And that's not really the case. Like if you look at like a lot of your previous guests, and some of them have mentioned this, that their teams are, financially motivated. Their teams don't come from the corporate HQ. And, we're there to really try and bridge the gap between, those two types of organizations. And so there's three things that we feel CVCs can bring to the table, and this is what we try to do every day. The first one is subject matter expertise. So we have engineers, like as an example, I spend a lot of time with our hydrogen team. And these engineers and technical and business people have been working on hydrogen for 25 years. They're deep experts in this field and they're deploying and they've seen the highs and the lows and the highs and the lows. And so we're able to really bring, that deep expertise to the startup. So that's really important that they can get this real-time feedback as to what's going on, with a friendly customer, so we want to be collaborating with all of our companies. And so it's across all of those sectors that we can bring that subject matter expertise. The other one is scale. And so that's something that Toyota really has. We sell, well over 10 million cars a year. We have the Toyota production system, and we're able to really help give that feedback to our startups. Sometimes, it can be technical, sometimes it could be business, but really helping them understand, what we're doing at scale and, how to bridge the gap for them to get there. And then lastly, it's about long-term value. So although we do have, financial returns as a motivator, a lot of the projects that we're working on within the automotive industry, they're 3 and 4 year design timelines. And so if a startup is willing to be, in that process, it's a lot of work at the beginning to build the relationship and to go through all of the requirements. But once you're there, you're in that process and you have, that stability that comes with that. And so a lot of CVCs can bring that long-term vision to the table. So those are the three things that we really spend a lot of time thinking about with our portfolio.